Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. 2 minutes to go till we go live. Looks like we got a few viewers out there. Appreciate it. 2 more minutes, we'll get going with episode 11 of The Viper's Nest. Welcome to Viper's Nest Live, episode number 11. Getting going at it a little bit late, but just in time for that preview of week 5 of the XFL. Welcome. I'm your host, the Sports Moose, half of the host tandem. Of course, Emrod's been out for a week or so, had a big move into a new house, so we expect them back for the preview show week 6. We won't be back for a recap of week 5 on Tuesday, but he'll be back Thursday or Friday. Probably Thursday, actually, since I'm driving to Tampa starting on Friday. We'll probably do the preview show day early on Thursday for the Battlehawks. I will be in attendance finally. First XFL game. Really excited for that. Be part of the fan gang in person. If you're new, of course, welcome to the Viper's Nest. Been around 11 episodes now. I can't believe it that we've made it this far. It's been great. Been a lot of fun. Great hobby. And it's been great getting to know these Vipers, the 2020 version of the Vipers. Drama always, right? It looks like we're starting to settle down and get going, but we're excited for week 5 of the XFL action. Basically another must-win, would you say, for the Vipers? Potentially. Still in the basement of the East, though the teams ahead of us not looking great. I like our odds to get into that second slot by the end of week 10, but we gotta get some W's going in a row, especially with the Battlehawks coming into town next week. But we don't want to overlook this upcoming week against the LA Wildcats. But of course, in good old Viper's Nest tradition and all of our other shows' tradition, as we always do before we get going, let's hit that intro. Right, everybody's first time watching an episode. Of course, we've got a kind of a brand new look where we did the graphics. So we have our topics now instead of up above me. Got them over here to your right. Of course, today, as we always do, we'll start around the XFL, kind of a mini preview of the three other games. Some really interesting matchups this week, though I think the toughest game to call might be the Guardians and Renegades, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And of course, we'll go in depth for the Vipers Week 5 preview against those LA Wildcats. Kind of a nightcap game out west. Primetime once again for the Vipers. 2 primetime games. I guess what we'll consider primetime games in the XFL in a row, closing us out on Sunday night. Tail of the tape. We'll go position by position, seeing where the Wildcats and the Vipers stack against each other. And, of course, Moose's 3 keys to the game. We nailed all 3 last week. And lo and behold, we won the game. So we'll take a look at what we need to do to be effective against the Wildcats and increase our chances of winning. You'll see down below, we've got the ticker with the odds and your betting numbers. All your, I think I put the spreads on the home, or not the home team, the favored team. So we'll see the minus 2.5 for the Wildcats. Somehow they're favored. So, of course, just take the flip of that. Vipers plus 2.5 and so on and so forth. I think I put the spreads there. Yeah, Guardians plus 7.5 and over 37. I think I had a couple picks there. So Moose's picks are at the end of the big scrolling text down below. Of course, our show is part of the Sports Heap, our kind of conglomerate of different shows. And here we are for week number 5. Let's get going around the XFL. No music for the the non-rundown. We only do the music for our recaps of the week. But let's go around the XFL. First game up to this afternoon. Maybe not as interesting as it should be. Mostly because Houston, instead of playing excellent football, has only been playing good football. And now, all of a sudden, Seattle might have a quarterback. BJ Daniels, almost 200 yards, all-purpose yards, passing and rushing by himself last week. I'm really excited for this game. Seattle looked like they had life and an offense for the first time since, I guess since the Vipers game, where our offense was giving them short fields and they were able to muster together some points. But, the spread's so big in this one, though. This is, I think Houston, of course, does win this game, but the key matchup is going to be BJ Daniels, and if he can get the ball, he has 2 great receivers, right? He has Keenan Reynolds and Austin Prohl. We talked about the preview or the recap last episode, in episode 10, where, like, Keenan Reynolds, for instance, the reception versus the target rate was like 40% or something like that. I think it was even lower than that. So, again, it just goes to show the inaccuracy of Brandon Silvers. And, I can't believe Jim Zorn, gave him 4 weeks. Even the Vipers game, you're looking at, oh, wow, this is... the only reason the Vipers are anywhere near sniffing victory in this game is because Brandon Silvers couldn't put 2 or 3 passes together and get him down the field. So I think that's really the big story, is how BJ Daniels performs against, on paper, one of the better defenses in the league, certainly in terms of pass pressure and quarterback hits and generating turnovers. I think Houston's turnover margin is number 1 in the league. In terms of points allowed, Houston is giving up a few points, but again, a lot of that comes in garbage time as they're trying to catch up with Houston being, I believe, they've scored the most points in the league. I think they're averaging like 32 points a game. So again, a lot of those points Houston's giving up is late fourth quarter, teams trying to make a comeback, and with the rules being the way they are at the XFL, that's of course very, very favored. Looking at, lead the league in sacks. They have I think the Guardians have a pretty good tandem on the sack clock, if you will. But Houston, I think 10 or 11 sacks. They lead the league. They lead the league in interceptions. and fumble recovery, so they have a huge turnover margin in the positive. And yes, that's what I thought. They lead the league in QB hits, just a hair under 30 total QB hits, 11 of those being sacks. So they are putting pressure on the quarterback and making him feel uncomfortable. Have they faced any? I mean, other than Jordan Tamu, I think back, what is that, week 1 or week 2, Battlehawks and Houston. Other than Jordan Tamu, have they faced someone like B.J. Daniels, who's able to potentially run for 100 yards and throw for 200? I think this is going to be a big test for Houston, a sneaky test, and I think the spreads aren't giving enough credit to the Dragons and what they could potentially do. I mean, it's a plus 400 money line bet on the Dragons. The spreads, I think the spread now is the biggest it's ever been at minus 12.5. I think I saw as high as minus 13 and a minus 550 on the money line for the Roughnecks. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. If Seattle, when you're looking at Seattle's defense, they're middle of the road, and then they themselves do a decent job of getting pressure on the quarterback. They just don't generate as many turnovers and get home on blitzes or when they're rushing 4. I think only 7 sacks, which is 5th in the league right now, so bottom half. And they give up a decent amount of yards as well. So, what I also like looking at is third completion and the third down completion, third down conversion rate and fourth down conversion rate, because those are huge in the XFL. You're getting into third down a good number of spots, and you're definitely encouraged and incentivized to go for it on fourth down. So the ability to get those is huge. And Seattle on fourth down, just a hair under 50%, which is really good. Looks like they're 5th in the league. And right now, I think with New York's performance last week, with Luis Perez in there, New York was like at 13% third down conversion. And it looks like Seattle's now in the basement at 20% conversion rate. So they will have to improve upon that in order to have any sort of chance against Houston. I think this game's in Houston as well. So I think that's going to be a tough environment to play. Not sure if it was for this game, but I've just reading through news and Twitter highlights. I don't know if they opened up the second level for this one. It might be for whenever Dallas is coming back in town. To Houston. But big news for the Battlehawks is they've requested to sell the second level or third level of the dome. So, man, we could be in the 40,000 range for a Battlehawks game. Wow, that's going to be incredible, especially when the Vipers probably come to town in a couple weeks, and that's going to be a huge game. Getting my morning started early with some, shameless plug here. Definitely don't get paid or endorsed by Bud Light, but Bud Light Seltzer, thumbs up, by the way. I took the advice of one of my favorite hockey podcasts, mixing the strawberry Bud Light Seltzer with some Pink Whitney, which is a pink lemonade flavored vodka, for the Fizz Nasty. It's delicious. Highly recommend, by the way. Good way to get your morning started. So my pick here, I think there's no value in taking the Roughnecks on the money line, but that 12.5 point, I just think Seattle can keep it closer than that. So if I had to make a pick on the spread, I think we're going to take Seattle plus 12.5 here. And what was the over-run on this one? Like 44, I want to say. Houston can score some points. I'm going to take the over on this one. I would take over 44, and I think it's been bumped up a little bit since I looked at it last. It's looking like 46 now. Yep, total 46. I'll take over 46 on this one. So that's your preview for the Roughnecks and the Dragons. Let's move over to Saturday evening's game. 5 o'clock start Eastern, coming out of Dallas. And, of course, the big story last week was that the Renegades had a higher attendance in their second game than the first game, which kind of bucked the trend across the league. So I think a more I think part of that was the Texas Throwdown, right? You want a big rivalry between Dallas and Houston in most things. So it was great to see that. Hopefully, we'll get a nice bump this week as well with the Guardians coming to town. New look Guardians, provided that McGloin doesn't set foot on the field again. We're gonna want to have Luis Perez looked really good. I mean, I think I was claiming for him a little bit. I didn't fully trust Marquise Williams. He wasn't even. I mean, I know he played okay in North Carolina, but Luis Perez I thought was a hidden talent and needed a shot, and I'm glad that they decided to roll with him. And that offense looked like it could move the ball finally. I think it helped that they got a great performance from both Cook and Victor. So, again, the key for the Guardians to have a chance in this one is getting that running game going. On the flip side of the ball, of course, the big story, Landry Jones going down. So, what is that going to do for their offense and the chances to get the ball to, I mean, probably the best tight end in the league right now is Donald Parham, among the leading receivers in the league. So really that's going to be the story is, can Philip Nelson, who looks shaky in week one, get the ball to his wide receivers? And again, kind of football 101, got to have a strong running game. Cameron Artis Payne had a down-ish week last week, so again, got to really push the issue and try to run through those New York Guardians, who have been very stout on defense. I think this is going to be a tough task, and honestly, I think I would take the Guardians in this one if I'm picking. I would take the Guardians here, probably on the money line. I think the spread was in the fives, right? 5.5. Probably take the Guardians money line, but if you're feeling really risky, maybe on the spread, I think it's gonna be close. So Guardians money line for me on this one. Again, New York really giving up under 20 points a game, right up there with Dallas, and they're both in the 18 range. New York's giving up the most yards, which is surprising, but then again, offenses are getting the ball a lot, or were getting the ball a lot with New York, because they were going 3 and out or having a turnover a lot. So a lot of opportunity for offenses to generate offense against the Guardians lately. Looking on defense as well, against they were up top at sacks and quarterback hits. I mean, they're second in those, other than Houston. You could say New York has potentially one of the second best pass rush defense. I think total defense, the Vipers are going to be number one statistically, and they looked impressive, of course, last week against DC, and they'll need to play well again against the Wildcats. Let's see how much they improved on the third down efficiency, because they're tied at 8th with the Dragons at 21%. 35% for Dallas, so that's a little bit better. Dallas is really good on fourth down, however. 75%. I'm going to go, I guess it's going to be 3 for 4 on those attempts. And right behind them, actually, New York, fourth, and they've had to go for fourth down quite a bit at 63%. So again, key players to watch. I think Luis Perez makes a nice bounce back today. Darius Victor, huge game last week. It's going to be needed, called upon again to have a chance in this one. And if Artis Payne has a big game, you would say that Dallas wins this game. Of course, Mikhail McKay needs to get into the action. I think Luis Perez is starting to build that chemistry with him. I think Joe Horn Jr. was getting into the action last week. Looks like Colby Pearson's up on their leaderboard there with 11 receptions. 128, not bad. And then again, Lance Dunbar and Donald Parham are the big boys for the Renegades. I hope I didn't say Bandits or Desperados. For some reason, Dallas Desperados would have been pretty sweet, but I like the Renegades. Renegades are solid. So again, Landry Jones out. Philip Nelson in for the Renegades. We'll see how that works out for him. Again, my final pick is going to take New York on the money line here. I think New York pulls this off against Dallas, as much as I don't want that to happen, because we need to catch up with the Guardians, but I'm going to take Guardians on the money line right now. They're at plus 255. Pretty good value there. I think that is a great value pick. I don't know if I would have them. Ooh, actually, it's the spread's at 7.5 now. I might take New York with the spread here, but the money line pick I think could be a little bit better value there. He gets a little bit more money. I think the spread pick at plus 7.5 is going to pay you minus 115 maybe at best. Let's move on to our Sunday afternoon game. This is going to be an interesting one because DC's getting into must-win territory. They've had some abysmal showings the last 2 weeks. 4-interception game for Cardell Jones before the Vipers game. And then it was at the Wildcats? The Wildcats, right? Bad game against the Wildcats. Bad game against the Vipers. Lost his cool. Hopefully, team members in the heat of the moment, sometimes you'll say things you kind of regret. So hopefully they've been able to build off of that and get better as a team. But now they're facing St. Louis, who you could say over the last 2 games has been a better team and a more complete team than Houston. So I don't know. DC's undefeated at home, so I guess they have that going for them. But yeah, their points scored a game has decreased dramatically. A shutout, of course, is going to do that for you. Big 25-0 loss to the Vipers, of course, last week. And, they didn't have an answer in terms of the rushing game. And the Battlehawks can run. That's going to be a problem for them. The Battlehawks can run. And if they can't stop the run, they're going to have a bad time. Not only can Matt Jones run, but so can Jordan Ta'amu. And Jordan Ta'amu can get it done in the air as well as Taylor Cornelius was able to get the job done in the air. He threw for 200 and change. So the key to control St. Louis is got to find a way to slow the running game. Maybe get some pressure on Jordan Ta'amu. But then you got to be able to contain him. Because if you're going to have a situation where Jordan Ta'amu's getting out of potential sacks and getting out of pressure and then running down the field, you're also going to have a bad time. You also got to keep the offense on the field if you're DC. I think they ran only 30 plays last week to the Vipers 80, or I think 39 to 80. But offense only had 6 total first downs, the multiple punts. Got to get some conversions early, get some confidence, keep rolling again, and get Pumphrey and the other running back, I forget his name, get him going because you're going to have to establish dominance on the ground and start chewing up some clock. Third down conversion, St. Louis is the best team at 52%, and DC at 32%. Again, and St. Louis also fourth down conversions tied for first, 75%. And DC actually does decently well on fourth down at 67%. Cardell Jones, after a hot start, up to 6 picks. I think he might lead. Does he lead the league in interceptions? I think at this point he just might. He's dropped down to 55% completion rating. Where Ta'amu for the year so far, 4 games in, 75%. I mean, he is so efficient. They're drilling those high percentage throws. I mean, that's all you have to do is just march down the field. You don't have to be airing it out and throwing bombs every play. The Battlehawks have done, stellar game planning, stellar coaching, and fundamental play for the Battlehawks. I think DC has no chance in this one. As much as this is almost somewhat desperation time, I think the Battlehawks run away with this one. Again, Pumphrey and the second running back for DC, his name's escaping me right now. Big key, Matt Jones, of course, right among the leading rushers. Devion Smith taking the lead after a huge performance last week. We talked a little bit of Pearson L being a little, kind of not the big name you're hearing out there, but I think as St. Louis continues to trend up, I think we're going to be hearing his name a little bit more. Big names for DC, of course, Rashad Ross, Eli Rogers, very, very quiet against the Vipers. If Cardell's able to get them the ball, I fully expect a big game. They're going to need him from at least one of them, either Ross or Rogers. think have a sleeper pick here. Christine Michael. I think Christine Michael gets a little bit into the action. Maybe gets a touchdown. That'd be great for him. I think does Matt Jones have a touchdown this year? He has. I think it just won. So Christine Michael, I think, has multiple touchdowns where Matt Jones does not have any. So we'll see what goes on, especially just you don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen here, but I think it's Battlehawks for sure. Now, what is the spread on this one? I want to say this is also pretty close for some reason. I think you easily take the Battlehawks. You got to take the Battlehawks with the spread, even if it's like -4. I don't think this is a field goal game. I think the DC's getting a lot of credit. Actually, it's gone up to +5.5. That has to be a little bit of home field advantage. I'm curious what the crowd will be at DC. I think I would take the Battlehawks with the spread. Battlehawks -5.5. And finally, getting to the big one here. We're excited for Vipers at Los Angeles. It's a big road trip for the boys in lime green and gold. Excited for this one. I think this is going to be a good test. This is a game we should win pretty easily, but you never know, especially with Winston Moss. You want it? He's going to give it to you right now. I love that sound clip. I'm going to keep that forever. Anytime it's applicable, we're going to be playing that. So this is an interesting matchup, and on paper, the Vipers look so great on paper. I mean, it's just amazing. I think they have in terms of yardage, they're number 1 on offense and number 1 on yards given up on defense. So, in theory, this is a juggernaut going against a team that's still trying to find its identity. Josh Johnson had a decent game last week, but certainly not at the level of his previous 2. So, again, I think one of the big keys, and we'll see it in 3 keys at the end of the show, is finding a way to control Josh Johnson, get some pressure, but similar to Jordan Ta'amu, do not let him get away and make plays of his legs. I mean, we have to find a way to contain and force him to throw into one of the best secondaries in the league, especially with McFadden out there. Hawking, I think he's up to 2 or 3 interceptions leading the league. So, really, it's going to come down to also Cornelius. Great game last week, 72% completion. I think the game plan was so much better. Of course, a couple attempts down the field, big bombs, but it just had a different feel, right? And again, we've tried to be respectful of what Q could have brought to the team, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And part of that, I think, is we talked about it in episode 10. I just don't think we had the coaching staff to pull it off. I mean, no offense to Mark Trestman, doesn't strike me as a guy who has the moxie and the wherewithal to know about how to use a 2-quarterback system, especially with the style of play being different. And then, you have to look on the flip side, and I know competitive nature, and I've been there. You want to be that quarterback, and I know Quentin Flowers just wanted an opportunity to play professionally as a quarterback, and, it's just not going to happen with the Vipers. I think the proof was in the pudding. I mean, he had some shots, and not orthodox shots by any means. It's like, hey, you're going to go in for 4 plays. Let's see what you can do. And it just, I don't know. Just the vibe felt different. I think Cornelius felt, you could see kind of a sigh of relief where he played more relaxed and was able to complete passes. Didn't seem like he had that additional pressure of, I have someone breathing down my neck who's ready to take my job. So I'm really excited to see how Taylor approaches this game and the game planning that we've been able to do. Again, lots of the play calling duties, leaving Trestman and going to the offensive coordinator. But again, you're looking at in terms of total offense, that the Vipers offense almost 400 yards a game right now. The rushing game is phenomenal. I mean, these are college numbers, right? This is like Big 12 numbers. You're looking at the rushing games, 171, 209 in the air. And then even on defense, yards allowed, Vipers are number one. They've only given up on average 230 yards a game. They're giving up only 80 yards on the ground, and they're only giving 156 in the air. I mean, it's this defense. This is not a 1-3 team, and I know we got going at them in the early episodes of the podcast. The talent's there, and I think that's why we were so frustrated. It's like, what? I mean, what is going on? We just couldn't put it together, and it's crazy that we lost the Guardians with Matt McGloin and then Brandon Silvers with Seattle. I mean, we'll give you the Houston game, even though we probably deserved a better fate there, but this is probably a 3-1 team disguised in 1-3 clothing, or if you will. LA right up there at 1-3 as well. I think they're a 1-3-ish team, and their stats support that. Vipers actually, I know we were giving them a hard time. I think the last 2 games have stepped it up in terms of pass rush. Getting QB hits at 20, sacks at 5. I hope that we can get and close it out in terms of sacks, but it's more so about the pressure, and consistent pressure on the quarterback makes your secondary looks like an all-pro secondary, because quarterbacks are making bad decisions and throwing interceptions or throwing the ball away and leading to 3-and-outs and just punting or kicking field goals or whatnot. So, Vipers only have had 7 opportunities for conversions, which I thought was interesting. I guess we've only scored 7 touchdowns, 3 for 7 total on conversions. Haven't gone for 3 yet. LA, of course, getting one of the first, I think, 3-point conversions in history. So they're 5 for 12 on conversions. Third down efficiency, Vipers at 47% and 42% third and fourth down, respectively. LA a little bit worse than that, 32 and 38, respectively, for third and fourth down. So again, I fully expect Vipers defense to own here. I think this is a pretty clear Vipers win, and we'll take a look at that as we get into tail of the tape next. Josh Johnson and Taylor Cornelius, kind of a similar story, both at around 63% completion rating. Taylor having a huge game last week, which I think made a huge difference. Josh Johnson, almost 1,000 yards passing so far. 7 touchdowns, which is impressive, to Taylor Cornelius's 2. I think Taylor's got 1 rushing. He trucked over that big defender, took a big hit, probably separated his shoulder temporarily. Big story on the ground, where I think the Vipers have a huge advantages on the ground. You have Martez Carter and Elijah Hood really not getting the job done on the ground. And some of that offensive line for LA really struggling. De'Veon Smith has been a machine, along with Jacques Patrick. Again, combined rushing of getting pretty near 1,000 yards for the season. And the advantage, again, also wide receiver-wise, and we'll talk about it closely, tail of the tape, Dan Williams is back, big bad Dan Williams. And the big story, Nick Truesdell, finally back, 2 weeks off with some injury issues, but he is back, and I think that's going to be a huge weapon to have. I think Goolsby was serviceable, had a big grab, but I think having Nick Truesdell and that third big body going down the field is going to be a huge advantage for the Vipers. Nelson Spruce, I believe, is out again this week. He was listed on the injury report. I don't think he practiced, so LA's going to be hurting. But Trey McBride has really stepped up his game, and it's going to be huge that we're able to cover him as well. So, again, I think Jerry Glanville's defense did a better job being more effective with blitzes. It was driving me nuts the weeks before in our losses, where it seemed like we were blitzing like 90% of the time, but we weren't getting to the quarterback or putting any pressure. So it was really frustrating, or leaving our secondary on islands, and sometimes just being outnumbered down the field. So let's get to tail of the tape. Tail of the tape, of course, is where we go position by position just to see how we match up on the line of scrimmage, receivers, running backs, etc., etc. Let's bring up our screen here. So, of course, if you're watching live, truly appreciate it. You get to see the infographic. If you're listening to this later on our podcast that will release in the next few hours on your usual podcasting platforms, try my best to describe this for you. So let's bring up the screen for Tail of the Tape. Of course, a big matchup of 1-3 teams. Vipers, I think, are a lot better than a 1-3 team. But advantage right now when you're looking at your quarterback, I think Taylor Cornelius is a little bit unproven yet. Has looked shaky when there's been pressure, both from Quentin Flowers and coaching, as well as pressure from the opposing team. Josh Johnson's just he's been a little bit better. I'm going to give him LA the advantage on the quarterback line. So red check mark for them. In the quarterback box, when you're looking at your receivers and tight ends, I think the injury to Nelson Spruce really hurts LA. And I think the really, really big story is the return of Nick Truesdale coming back, I think gives us the advantage here, kind of weighs stuff in Tampa's favor. So, again, Dan Williams, Jalen Tolliver, Nick Truesdale. It's going to be a great combination of tight ends and wide receivers. Got to go with Tampa on this one. I think running back, again, no question, goes to Tampa. You're looking at the worst running offense versus the best running offense. Jacques Patrick, I expect a heavy dose of Jacques Patrick and Devion Smith for the Wildcats. It's going to be a pretty clear victory on the running back front for Tampa, unless LA's defensive line and front six, front seven step up and are able to stop them. Similarly, on the offensive line front, we've seen huge improvements in terms of pass protection. No sacks given up last week, which was a huge victory, and just absolute manhandling on the offensive line, opening gaps up, getting blocks way down the field, just absolute power running for the Vipers. So I'm going to give them the advantage on the offensive line. I'm going to give them the advantage on defensive special teams. Of course, something swaying this is, I think LA's kicker is out, right? Nick Novak is out, and Andrew Franks has been consistent. He's second in the league in field goals made. And the Vipers defense, again, statistically speaking, best against the run, best against the pass. And now they're starting to get pressure on the quarterback. I'm liking what I'm seeing. No key injuries on defense. I think the Vipers defense makes a difference here and controls the game. Going to give the advantage there to them. And then at coaching, I think I'm going to go even here. I'm going to call it a draw here. Trestman has kind of stepped back, given play calling duties to the offensive coordinator. I like that. He could have just been the one to be like, you know what, we're going to do it my way, and this is going to eventually work. So I appreciate that. Kind of recognizing, hey, maybe someone else is better to handle this. I think he's making better decisions, and I just like our offensive strategy right now. And even on the defensive side of the ball with Jerry, do what works. And I'm really liking what I see. I think Winston Moss, especially after kind of a crazy start to the season for LA, firing the defensive coordinator after the game one loss, shifting some culture there for the Wildcats. Yeah, I think he's done a phenomenal job getting that team ready to go. They're really struggling on the ground. I think that's really where their weakness is that they're not getting a well-balanced attack, having to rely on Josh Johnson a lot. I'm going to call coaching a draw here. I'm going to call it a draw, but overwhelming advantage, big yellow check mark right next to the Vipers logo. And again, if you don't remember the lines, I think it was plus 2.5, right now plus 20, and the total's 40. I would take an over on that. So that is your tail of the tape. I think the victory going to the Vipers, at least when you're looking position by position. Definitely getting the advantage there. Let's close out the show with, of course, Moose's 3 keys to the game. This is where we kind of throw the common sense football 101 at you. Nothing too groundbreaking on 3 keys to the game, of course. Let's take a look at them. Let's get the info screen back up again for our friends watching online. Got the three keys to the game. Where are you, three keys? There you are. There you are. A little issue with my hotkeys. Three keys to the game. Again, focus on pass defense. If we're able to stop the pass, that's really the only advantage they're going to have. We know about Josh Johnson. Again, the second key's a little bit related there. Get pressure on Josh Johnson, and you got to contain him. It's not good enough to get the pressure on there, and then he's going to run through the gaps and 15, 20-yard runs, third down conversions on third and long. We gotta find a way to contain him, and we got to get pressure on him for him to make some bad decisions. I think a little bit similar to what we saw with Cardale Jones. I mean, we were to get some pressure, not making great calls, throwing the ball out of bounds. And then, of course, on the flip side of that, too, if we're able to focus on the pass defense, especially with their running game, not great, and not really getting pressure, not able to dominate on the line and get that running game going, kind of forces them to pass, right? Again, football 101, not too groundbreaking here, and kind of three keys are never groundbreaking, right? But it's about those fundamental aspects of how what we have to do, just the little things we have to do to maintain our advantage. And again, we've seen it the last two games. The offensive line has to continue to dominate, open up those running lanes. I'm really excited. I think we have a chance here to have another breakthrough performance rushing-wise, and then continue to protect Taylor Cornelius. We've seen that, again, 0 sacks last week. Huge improvement from what we saw in week 1 and week 2 against the Dragons and the Guardians, who I guess ironically are among the best pass rushing and getting heat on the quarterback teams so far, at least 4 games in. So we'll see how LA can get some pressure on there. I'm liking our chances here. I think this is a Vipers victory, getting us to 2-3, and then a big showdown against the Battlehawks next week. But let's not do that. Let's not skip ahead. Let's focus on the Wildcats. Let's not start dreaming of being 2-3 quite yet. This is going to be a tough one still. But if we're able to pull off the fundamentals, run game, protect Cornelius, give them time, I think this is an easy victory for the Vipers. That has been it for our first live Vipers Nest. I kind of liked it. Maybe we'll have to do that Saturday mornings if I have the time moving on. You'll see my Twitter handle below, Moose, at Moose_TSH. Make sure to follow and interact with us there. And then, of course, Emrod should be back for episode 13, which should be the preview show next week. Likely do it Thursday night just because I'll be on my way to Tampa for vacation, taking a nice cruise, getting away from the healthcare world for a little bit. Cruise on Sunday, so get into the Battlehawks game on Saturday to enjoy the Fan Gang's company. That's been it for Moose. Make sure you're checking us out. If you haven't already on YouTube, on our channel, The Sports Heap, you'll see some of our other shows on there. Bucking Hangovers, our Buccaneers reaction show. Probably need to have an episode of that in the next week or two with all these rumors of Tom Brady and Phillip Rivers and now Derrick Henry rumors. What is that? I don't get too much into rumors, so I just kind of maybe want to. Emrod and I want to summarize that and laugh at them. Getting close to free agency as well. That's going to kick off while I'm on vacation. So I'm curious to see if Tom Brady's going to be wearing that 12 for the Buccaneers. I hope not. And then, of course, make sure you follow us on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Just search for your favorite show, Viper's Nest. It's on there. Give us a like, give us a rating. And then our lightning shows, we're doing 1 episode a week right now, too. Thunderdome Puckcast. Should be dropping an episode of that. If not tomorrow, like I usually do on Sundays, probably Monday night. I got some visit in town, so not so much time for podcasting. I was able to escape. Everyone's still sleeping, so or out and about, actually, I should say. So I was able to do a Viper's Nest for you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, hopefully with reporting back on a Vipers victory. It's been Moose with the Viper's Nest. Take care.